Hi teachers, if you're doing the critical thinking worksheet with your students, if you go into the video description, there's a line that says slideshow worksheet lesson start here. And if you click on that timestamp, you can jump right to that portion of the video. Oh, the answer to the intended audience of the slideshow and the video might be different depending on what information your students have, if they just have the slideshow, if they have the video, or if they watch the full video. And that's okay, because part of critical thinking is being full-minded. Having more information sometimes helps us to make more informed decisions. All right, enjoy the show. Hey, Teacherpreneurs, do you want to increase TPT sales? Do you want a successful TPT store? Watch this video and I'll go over 5 things. If you do these 5 things, you will win. But the reality is, most of us won't do these 5 things. Check this out. So in today's motivational video for TPT sellers, I'm going to talk about effort. And normally when we talk about selling on TPT, we talk about the TPT journey and how we're all at different stages. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's true. But I'm going to talk about effort from a different perspective. I'm going to talk about it from paradigm shifts. So pretend that we are at a conference. Maybe it's TPT Forward, maybe it's a teacher professional development thing in your state or province, and I'm the keynote speaker, and the exciting topic is pedagogical and cultural paradigm shift through teacher entrepreneurial adventure. Or, as the subtitle reads, how to turn the worst moment of your life into the best moment of your life. Watch this talk that I'm going to deliver in the future. Watch about it from the perspective of a teacher thinking about pedagogical change in education. And then also watch it from the lens of a teacherpreneur in terms of a pedagogical shift in how you think about selling on TPT. All right, check this out. What's the point of school? Seriously. So, I used to teach grade 8, but life happened and I don't do that anymore. One day, I'll teach grade 8 again. And I'll start the class by asking, what's the point of school? And inevitably, there's always a joker, and they're going to say, there's no point, and we'll laugh. Or maybe I'm doing this talk at a staff meeting. And, I'm doing professional development at a staff meeting and I ask, what's the point of school? And there's always a joker and someone's going to say, there is no point. Or free babysitting. And we'll laugh. And eventually we'll talk about this idea that the point of school is to learn. Or in teacher talk, the point of school is to learn or teach the curriculum. And I would disagree. I think the point of school is not to learn stuff, but to figure out how to learn. And that little difference is profound. Let's talk about a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change in the way that you think about something or do something. So in this case, normally school is about learning stuff. We learn stuff, we teach the curriculum, students memorize things, they write papers, they give answers, they read textbooks, they answer the questions at the end. We learn stuff. And then we quickly forget some of the things that we just memorized. But what about the stuff that hasn't been invented yet? So when I was your age, we didn't have the internet. And now the internet has completely changed the world. Right? Think about how interconnected we are. I can buy services. I can get someone from across the world to do something on the computer for me faster and cheaper than I can get locally. The world is globalized, and the way that we have jobs or compete has completely changed and will completely change when our students have grown up. If we're learning or teaching stuff, and the stuff that our students are going to need in the 21st century hasn't been invented yet, then are we getting our students ready for the 21st century? Let's talk about a fundamental change. Yes, we're still learning stuff. We're still learning the curriculum, but we are learning stuff as a way to learn about how to learn. Or more specifically, how you learn or how the students learn. or how we learn as teachers. You get the idea. My name's Mike Fuchigami. I taught middle school in Ottawa, Canada for a while, and then life happened. And sometimes things just come out of the blue. Like a lot of people, I have some mental health challenges. I have anxiety, I have depression, I have paranoia, and something happened at school, and I felt like I had failed to protect my students. I felt like I had failed to notify parents about what they had been exposed to. I felt like I failed as an educator. And I felt this was the core of my identity. Being a grade 8 teacher was who I was. And I fell into a deep mental health crisis. And those were some dark times. Before that, in the classroom, my students and I were playing around with the idea about a growth mindset and what that was. And we were learning about the 6 C's of education's 21st century learning skills. We talked about character and grit and how that works. We talked about active citizenship and what that means. We talked about collaboration and true collaboration versus just teamwork. We talked about communication during tough conversations that matter. We talked about critical thinking. We explored what that means, criteria-based thinking. We looked at creativity, ways to connect ideas in new ways. And these together as transferable skills to help us navigate changing worlds. So these social emotional learning skills literally saved my life, because by thinking about them, by knowing that if I could shift into a growth mindset, if I knew that there was a light at the top of the mountain, I just couldn't figure out how to get there. I couldn't see the path, but I knew that there could be a way out. I just didn't know what it was. And one of the things that I've learned about me is I like teaching, and I like creating lessons and thinking about how students are going to interact, and oh, they'll like that, or this will be good, or this is, that won't work. And so I found during some dark times, if I focused on creating lessons and I focused on things that matter, and I felt like I had a purpose that I could help grade 8 students again, that got me through some really dark times. And during these times, one of the things that I told myself is I will donate 10%, everything going forwards in my life, to support student mental health, because who knows who we have in our classroom? Who knows the mental health stories of the students in our classroom? So one of the first products I came up with was this idea about SEOT, which is an acronym. It stands for Strategies, Effort, Optimize, Tinker. And it's just a framework for us to achieve goals. And this is basically, I thought about how I was going through my struggles, and then my happy place was creating lessons. So I thought about how would I teach students, how to achieve goals. And so this is what sort of came out on the other end. It's not rocket science, and we do this naturally. But the idea, I think, is sometimes students get caught up as I'm going to put in so much effort and it's not working. I don't understand why. And they get frustrated. And then someone says, oh, just work smarter. SEOT is a way for us to figure out how to work smarter. To put it back into teacherpreneur terms, sometimes we feel like we're putting in so much effort on that hamster wheel and we're not seeing things improve on our store. Sometimes we need to work smarter and maybe tinker around or pay attention to the data or try something new, focus on strategies. So this is the kind of resource that I create. It's April 2028, and I've made my first million selling teacher resources like that on TPT. And this is incredibly humbling because it means that the lessons I made are being taught by teachers around the world. Other teachers see value in this kind of lesson. They're like, yeah, this is stuff. This is great stuff. I want to teach it to my students. This is important. And they are doing so. So one of the good things that came out of this dark moment of crisis was I'm not a classroom teacher anymore, but I'm still a grade 8 teacher. I'm still helping students. But now my reach is digital and global, which is kind of a neat idea. I made my second million helping teachers become teacherpreneurs. And I think being a teacher entrepreneur is fundamentally the best authentic 21st century deep learning task that a teacher can do. So teachers, we're used to knowing everything, right? We're the teacher. And to put ourselves into a position like trying to be a teacher seller where you're not the best and you have to figure things out, it's incredibly frustrating and it's hard. And there aren't easy answers. But if we can slowly figure out how to do that, then that helps us, I think that helps us become better teachers, because great teachers naturally bring our life experiences into the classroom. We don't have to talk specifically about selling on TPT in the classroom, but the idea about overcoming obstacles is a transferable idea. So that's why I think teaching entrepreneurs, I think this is key. So the question I've been toying with for a while now is, how do you turn that worst moment into the best moment of your life? And the answer is, I don't know how you are going to turn around the worst moment into the best moment of your life. I can only talk about me. I know what I went through. I have no idea what you're going through. I have no idea the obstacles you face, juggling work and a second job and a side hustle and family. I don't know your story, but you know your story. During some really dark times, I felt really alone, and people were constantly telling me that you're the only one who feels this way. No one else has said anything. This is just you. How often do our students feel like that? Or how often do we feel like that? It's just me. I only feel this way. But the reality is, you are not alone. And the epiphany I had was that other people have gone through a similar situation that I was going through, and they got through at the end. And if they could do it, I could probably do it too. And that's why it's important to share stories. There are literally 8 billion people in the world. The United Nations just announced this month, 8 billion people. That's crazy. Chances are, no matter who you are, there's someone out there that has done what you want to do. And if you can learn from them, then you too will be able to do that. So stories are a blueprint that we can follow. If you know how to learn, and by that I mean students, if they know how they learn, then this is an incredibly skill, because then we can pivot. We can deal with things that we haven't faced before, and we can pivot to avoid obstacles, and we can pivot to take advantage of opportunities. We saw this in the pandemic. Here's a real-world learning example that I'm wrestling with, and I'm going to walk you through my process, and maybe there's something that you can pull out of this. I want to curate 1 million SEOT stories. So this is a story. It's a real-world story. It's about a U.S. Army pilot who flies fighter jets and is terrified of flying. Crazy, right? Have your students ever been afraid to do something, but then they, wouldn't you just assume that if you were a pilot, you love flying? No, this person is terrified of that. I think some students can relate to that. So, there's a differentiated article written grade 4, grade 6, grade 8, grade 10, so that different students can access it in the class. And then it analyzes from an SEOT perspective in terms of life lessons that we can draw upon it. And then, of course, we have to connect it to the curriculum. So here are some reading comprehension questions that explore that, and then it ties into reading strategy. Stories matter. And having a variety of stories matter. And I think 1 million stories from different groups of people amplifying voices that maybe we don't hear so often, I think that's powerful stuff that I think students can relate to. So I need to figure out, I've never curated 1 million stories. I've never done anything that big. So I need to figure out how to do that. I need to learn what real effort looks like. Because sometimes, if you've never worked hard, how do you know what working hard is? Well, you think you're working hard because it's harder than you've ever worked, but you've never seen real effort. What does it take to get to the top? I don't know. How do you be successful? Here's what I learned from Steve Martin.
Someone stood up in an audience somewhere and said to you, how do you be successful? Mm-hmm. And you said you have to be undeniably good at something.
Well, it really is this. When people ask me, say, how do you make it in show business or whatever? And what I always tell them, I've said it many years, and nobody ever takes note of it because it's not the answer they wanted to hear. What they want to hear is, here's how you get an agent, here's how you write a script, here's how you do this, But I always say, be so good they can't ignore you. And I just think that if somebody's thinking, how can I be really good? People are going to come to you. It's much easier than doing it that way than going to cocktail parties.
Yeah.
This is an incredible paradigm shift that most of us won't do. He said, if you want to be successful, be so good they can't ignore you. And he also said, most people don't want to hear that. And they don't really pay attention to that because they want to know tactical things. So if you're a teacherpreneur, I see a lot of teacherpreneurs looking at, well, where do I put the keywords in my product descriptions? Or how do I, create an effective product cover? Or what kind of product should I create? Because I'm looking for profitable, high yield, low competition niches. The paradigm shift is to be so good, they can't ignore you. What does that mean as a teacherpreneur? It means your product is so good. You've communicated so clearly what your product is, and it meets that teacher's need exactly. It exactly fits their needs. It is so good that it's a no-brainer for them to get it. There's so much value in your product. Be so good they can't ignore you. From a store perspective, it means they are coming to TPT specifically to get your resources because you've built a brand for your TPT store. They've heard about you, they see the quality, they want you. So normally on TPT, people come to TPT and then they find a resource, right? And maybe it's your resource. Whereas if you're so good they can't ignore you, teachers are specifically looking up your resource, finding it, oh, it's sold on TPT, and then they're coming to buy it. That's the paradigm shift that I think TPT sellers need to switch into. But this is as hard of a paradigm shift as it is for education for us to switch between learning stuff and learning how to learn. Because lots of us will sit here and we'll think, well, I already focus on really good products, right? I do both. I teach content and I teach students how to learn, right? But the paradigm shift is, where do you put the emphasis? And in this case, I think what I've learned from Steve Martin is, if you're so good, they can't ignore you. They're going to come to you. The student example might be, if you want to be in the school play, if you are such a good drama student, the person running that play is going to come find you to make sure you audition, right? Because you are that good. So now I wonder, well, how do I get there? How do I become so good that they can't ignore you? Here's what I learned from The Rock.
So how did I get here? By being the hardest worker in the room.
Let's think about that for a second. He didn't say be the strongest person, be the smartest person, be the fastest person. He's talking about effort. He's saying be the hardest worker in this room. And this guy works out a lot. And if you are the hardest worker in the room, you will outcompete everyone. And the hardest worker, your competition is you, right? If you're the hardest worker in that room and no one's working harder than you, then you're competing against yourself, personal best. So now the question is, if you're a teacherpreneur, are you the hardest worker in the room in your Facebook group or in your circle of friends that you sell on TPT? Because if you want to become the best, if you want to have a successful store, if you want to hit his level of success, you've got to be the hardest worker. I find this guy intimidating. I like going to the gym. There's no way I could do his workout. So I can't even figure it out. How do I get there? How do I become superhuman? So I listen to podcasts and I try to learn something from everything. And here's something that I learned from Ed Mylett.
You want to become superhuman, though. That's not the standard. The standard is I do what I say I'm going to do, and I do one more. That's a different standard. I'm gonna make 10 contacts today for deals. Nope, I do that and one more. I'm going to do 10 reps on the bench. Nope, I do that and one more. I'm going to tell my daughter I love her today. Nope, I'm going to do that plus one more. You start stacking up the one mores of your life. Not only mathematically are you better, experience are you better, but you shift your matrix, you shift your identity into believing you deserve to get stuff you didn't get before or that other people get because you're doing stuff other people aren't willing to do.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. The big one is the way to become superhuman, the way to become so good that they can't ignore you is you do what you say you're going to do, and then you do one more. So as a TPT seller, if you say that you're going to do one product a week, do that and one more. If you think that, every day I'm going to update 5 product descriptions, you do that and then you do one more. And the one more is significant because it's only one more every day. And you think like, okay, it's one more here, one more here, one more here. But what it actually is a snowball effect. This is compound interest. So that one more here leads to more and more, like from a gym perspective, if I go into the gym and I work out with a specific weight, right? There's a certain amount of resistance. And then my muscles are tired and I work out one more, right? My muscles are getting stronger so that next time I can put on a bigger resistance. And so that snowball is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how I become superhuman. I do one more. But the second gem that he said in there was, you're doing things that other people aren't. I know for myself, I felt bad saying that I wanted to curate 1 million articles. That's ridiculous. That's too big. Who am I to say that? Who am I to make this slideshow? But his point was, if you do one more constantly, and you're constantly doing what other people aren't doing, that becomes part of your identity. If I want to be the best, I can't do what average people are doing. If your students want to be huge pop stars, but they only do what everyone else does, huge pop stars are at the top of their game. Can you get there by being average? How long do I have to keep this up? Because quite frankly, this sounds tiring. Here's what I learned from Babe Ruth.
You see, Babe.
It's a home run in the right field stand. First home run of the series.
'1933 All-Star Game, that guy hits a lot of home runs. That guy also misses a lot of balls and strikes out. This guy's putting in the effort. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but sometimes he connects with the ball and it's a home run. He wrote in 1940 in a magazine, he wrote this line, "You just can't beat the person who never gives up." Think about that for a second. If you and I are competing and I never stop, you just can't beat that. If I don't stop, eventually I will win. Eventually, if I do one more every day than I think I'm going to, eventually, if I'm the hardest working person in the room on my TPT store, eventually I will be so good, you can't ignore me. Huh. And now my anxiety is kind of kicking in. And I'm stressed out because that's overwhelming. That's a long time. How long can I keep this up? I can't think that far ahead. I can't think next week. Sometimes I have to think day by day. Sometimes I have to think moment by moment. Now the question is, how do I keep going during the tough times? And here's what I learned from Kristen Bell.
The second song was incredibly significant to me because It's called Do the Next Right Thing, and that's actually a mantra that I have with my life when I am anxiety riddled or get depressed. The only thing you can do is the next right thing, and it's baby steps. For anyone who's experienced a hardship or trauma or is flat on the floor and feels they can't pick themselves back up, the only practical application to rejoin the human race is to just do the next right thing. Sometimes that's just get out of bed, just put your clothes on, just brush your teeth. You only have to do one thing in that moment, and it's sung when Anna is at her absolute lowest. It's a really sad, dark moment of the film. And she is reminded of this mantra that will get her back to eventually save the day.
I loved that song in Frozen 2. But I think what I loved even more was finding out that the singer also struggled with anxiety and depression, and it had personal significance to her. Because the idea, when sometimes you can't just look beyond that moment, is to just focus on doing the next step. I find that very reassuring. I like knowing that she has anxiety and depression and she's able to get to where she was. So if she can do it, well, I can probably do it too. And what she's saying is when she's in those tough spots, just focus on doing the next right thing. And if I can focus on doing the next right thing as a teacherpreneur and I'm feeling better, then maybe I do one more. And some days I'll be able to do more than one more. And other days, I'm just doing the next right thing. But eventually, if I keep this up and I keep on just going one moment at a time, eventually I will become superhuman and I will be so good they can't ignore me. That's a powerful idea. And so then my story gets out there more. And this idea, what I want to be is I want to be a role model for my students and for my kid that even though there are tough times, you can still keep going. The story's not done. And that's a powerful idea, I think. And the bigger I get and the more classrooms that I can reach, and that message gets out there, and here are the skills that we're learning how to learn. Because I don't know what skills you're going to need, Macy. I don't know what skills you're going to need in the future. But I know that if you know how to learn, and if you know how to independently find those things, then yeah, I think we'll all be okay. So this is me, 8 billion people, and I found some stories that I could personally connect to. And maybe you can relate to those stories, and maybe not. You might be thinking, look, Mike, you don't look anything like me. You don't talk like me. You don't sound like me. You definitely aren't from the same community as me. What the do you know about my life? And the answer is I don't know anything about your life. I can't imagine what you're going through. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know anything. But what I do know is if there are 8 billion people in the world, chances are there is someone in your community. And the question is, have they dealt with the same thing? Have they been able to make it out? And if you look at how they got out, is that something that you can do? Does that fit in with who you are? Finding someone in a similar situation, I'm going to talk back about like as an English teacher. So a reading strategy is making connections. And when you connect, sometimes it's very easy to make these thin connections that are very superficial. Like he has a dog, I have a dog. But just because you both have dogs doesn't mean that there's any significance here. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times teacherpreneurs are looking within the TPT community for their answers. And they go to Facebook groups with TPT sellers and it becomes an echo chamber, I think. And so, for example, right now, sellers on TPT are trying to grapple with what to do about changes in the TPT search algorithm. Well, this is not the first time in the world that there's been a change in search algorithms. If you find someone different, right? Like people have dealt with changes in the Google search algorithm for years. And businesses lose millions of dollars just from changes in rank. So how did they get back to the top or deal with changes? Or maybe we're not looking at search algorithms and finding other people who dealt with search algorithms. Maybe we're looking at examples of people who pivoted their business because the game changed. So in this case, maybe same but different might be, okay, well, how could I pivot my business because the search algorithm has changed? But either way, find someone that you can relate to who has done what you are trying to overcome or done what you are trying to obtain. Figure out how they did it. Learn from what they did and see if that can apply to you. Here's the call to action. So students who are watching this video because you're filling out a worksheet, call to action time. If you're a student, when you learn stuff, the teacher is going to teach the way they're going to teach. You don't have oftentimes input on that. What you do have is an opportunity for you to learn about how to learn. So the teacher's delivering a class and you're trying to figure out how to learn. You're trying to figure out how to learn. It's very meta. You're learning the stuff, but you're figuring out how to learn about the stuff. Or more specifically, how you learn about the stuff. For the rest of us who aren't students in the classroom, this idea that learning only happens in school is a very limiting idea. What if we could learn anywhere from anyone? What if you could learn something from your nemesis, the person you don't get along with at work? If you can learn something from them about how you are, if you can become a student of yourself and you understand who you are and how you learn and what you need, these are important skills that you can use to become successful. So the point of school right now is to learn stuff, but I think the point of school is to learn how to learn. And if we can make that paradigm shift where this becomes a priority, then I think that's the key to success. Regardless of whether you're in a formal education system or you're not, if you can learn how to learn, it's like a superhero power and you can steal and adapt the powers of other superheroes, you are unstoppable. Thank you. What do you think? What do you think about that first tip? Be so good they can't ignore you. Making your products so good, so much value that it's a no-brainer to buy. Leave a comment. Also, if you like this, please subscribe to the channel if you want to increase sales on TPT. And this time I'm going to ask a favor from the true SEOtpreneurs and other people who are watching the channel. Can you share this in your TPT Facebook groups? And the reason why I ask that is because I'd like to grow this community of teacherpreneurs with an SEOT mindset. And I have some ideas coming up about things, but I'd also like to crowdsource some experiments to find out how to improve sales on TPT. So if you could help by posting this video in your Facebook group and asking, what do you think about tip number 1? All right. We'll see you next time. Oh, like, subscribe, follow, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye now. I am talking like this. All right. So this is a TPT motivational video. So this is a motivational video for TPT sellers. And normally when we talk about, I already said that. Okay. I have something special for the true SEOtpreneurs who watch all the way through to the very end, and the people who've optimized that by going into the video description, looking at the table of contents, and jumping to the end. Either way, I have something special for you. The slideshow used in this lesson, plus a question page, worksheet for students, is available on TPT, on my TPT store for free right now until Sunday, November 27th at midnight. So when the Cyber Monday sale starts on TPT, this product will cost money. And I wanted to say thank you to people. I wanted to give you a chance to get this product for free. It's critical thinking. So there are questions in there for students to try to figure out, what's the author's intent? Who benefits if this message is accepted? Is Mike really a millionaire? These are good questions. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm getting distracted. All right. Anyways, I don't know what I'm going to say here.